Let's be honest. Deep down, you already know this truth. You're not ready. Not because you're not capable, not because you're broken, but because the part of you that longs for change is still unwilling to release the version of you that must die for it. That quiet discomfort you feel, it's not just anxiety. It's the echo of something ancient inside you, signaling that transformation is near. The universe doesn't scream when it's about to give you something powerful. It whispers, it dismantles, and right before you're handed a new reality, it often feels like your entire life is falling apart. People leave, your body breaks down, certainty collapses, and you're left staring at the ruins, wondering, why now? But this isn't punishment. This is preparation. You're not being pushed backward. You're being stripped of everything that no longer fits the next version of who you're meant to become. And the most painful part? You can't fake this shift. You can't visualize your way into it. You must become the type of person who can hold the weight of what you've asked for. Carl Jung understood this with piercing clarity. The unconscious will not wait forever. When it's ready, it drags you into chaos. Chaos is not destruction. Chaos is the language of the soul rewriting its script. That breakup that tore you open, the betrayal that knocked you to your knees, the job you lost at the worst possible moment. These weren't cruel accidents. They were divine surgery. The universe was extracting what was dead inside you. But you called it bad luck. You labeled it injustice because you weren't ready to let go yet. The truth is, what blocks you isn't the world. It's the you that refuses to be dissolved. The version of you that still craves comfort while demanding transformation. The version that wants breakthrough without breakdown. The you that wants to be reborn without dying. But rebirth always costs something. And often, that cost is your ego. The ego doesn't want real change. It wants control. It wants safety, even if that safety is killing your spirit. So when the call for growth finally comes, the ego resists. It kicks. It screams. And that's when suffering begins. But suffering is not the enemy. It's the threshold. It's the proof that you're crossing into something new. And no border between the old and the new is painless. That silence you feel right now, that sense that everything is suspended, it's not abandonment. It's the in-between, the pause between death and rebirth, the sacred space where old identities disintegrate and something more truthful can finally emerge. This space is not empty. It's fertile, but only if you choose to plant something real in it. And what you choose to grow here will determine the shape of your next life. So ask yourself, are you trying to evolve while still holding on to everything that defines who you were? Are you asking the universe for change without giving it permission to change you? Because life doesn't give you what you wish for. It gives you what you embody. Let's go deeper now. You see, the moment your ego realizes that change isn't optional anymore, it begins to fight. It claws at your comfort zones. It floods your mind with doubt. It whispers, maybe this isn't the right time. Maybe you're being too dramatic. Maybe you should just be grateful for what you have. But deep down, you know, that voice isn't wisdom. It's fear, dressed up as logic. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Your ego would rather keep you safely miserable than risk the unknown. It would rather you stay small but certain than grow and face the chaos of transformation. This is why suffering shows up, not to hurt you, but to wake you up. Suffering only arises when your soul is ready to grow, but your ego refuses to let go. That's the breaking point, where the old self begins to crumble and something new, something more honest, starts to form underneath. But it hurts, and no one prepares you for that. We're taught to chase happiness, avoid pain, and look perfect while doing it. But no one tells you that the most authentic joy you'll ever feel comes after you've sat in the ashes of your old self and dared to ask, who am I, now that I've lost everything I used to hide behind? That silence you feel isn't emptiness. It's the space where masks fall off, where you no longer pretend to be okay, where pretending would take more energy than being honest. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is that moment. The moment the unconscious becomes undeniable. The moment you look in the mirror and don't see perfection. You see patterns. You see self-sabotage. You see the parts of you that are still clinging to pain like it's proof of identity. And now, you have a choice. You can numb yourself, scroll past it, blame others, or you can pause, look inside, and finally say, this ends with me. This is not easy. It's sacred. Transformation doesn't start with motivation. It starts with grief. The grief of realizing that who you were isn't who you need to be anymore. It's the sorrow of releasing old roles, of no longer fitting into relationships, of outgrowing versions of yourself you once loved. But if you stay in that grief long enough, something else rises. Not just hope, but clarity. You begin to see the difference between pain that's a punishment and pain that's a portal. You stop asking, why me? And start asking, what part of me is still afraid to grow? Because pain isn't personal. It's precise. It shows you exactly where you're still resisting. And the universe isn't cruel. It's intelligent. It removes what you refuse to walk away from. It delays what you want until you're ready to hold it without breaking. So if you're hurting right now, don't rush to fix it. Don't run. Don't numb. Instead, listen, because hidden in that discomfort is your next becoming. Let's now talk about something most people avoid. Your shadow. The parts of you you've buried to be accepted. The parts you've silenced to feel loved. The parts you've hidden just to survive. Carl Jung didn't say that healing is about light. He said it's about making your darkness conscious. Because that's where the real transformation begins. Not in affirmations, not in vision boards, but in the terrifying moment you look in the mirror and see the traits you always condemned in others, alive in yourself. That's not weakness. That's the threshold of honesty. Most people don't change because they're not ready to see the truth. Not about the world, about themselves. It's easier to blame the system, your past, your ex, or your parents. But at some point, life will whisper, this isn't about them anymore. It's about what you're still carrying. And that's when the identity grief begins. Because to become who you're destined to be, you'll have to grieve who you thought you were. You'll realize that much of your personality was protection, that your confidence was sometimes pride, your logic was avoidance, your kindness was people-pleasing. That's a brutal truth to swallow, but it's also liberating. Because once you know what was armor, you can decide to put it down. And that's when real authenticity begins. Not the curated version, not the healed persona, but the one that breathes, cries, and walks through fire, without pretending it doesn't hurt. True change isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming real. And real doesn't mean always strong. It means vulnerable, present, and brave enough to stop lying to yourself. Remember this. Pain reveals what pretending concealed. And once the pain shows you the pattern, it's your job to choose differently. Because what you don't transform, you'll repeat. What you don't face, you'll attract. What you deny will control you. So pause. Ask yourself, what part of me have I been avoiding? What old story have I been replaying just to feel safe? Not because it's true, but because it's familiar. This is where the ego trembles. Because you're stepping into truth without guarantees. No applause, no audience. Just you, raw and unfiltered, asking, what if I've outgrown the self I spent years building? If that thought scares you, good. It means you're close. Now comes the most uncomfortable truth. Change isn't about what you desire. It's about what you're ready to release. The universe doesn't care about what you say you want. It watches what you're willing to walk away from. Your old identity, your justifications, your pride. Many people say, I'm ready for a new life. But they're still clutching the habits, people, and beliefs that built the old one. Here's the paradox. You can't step into a new version of you with your past self still in your hands. Transformation doesn't come from promises. It comes from grief. The grief of letting go of who you thought you had to be. It's that moment when everything inside you whispers, I can't do this version anymore. Not because it failed, but because it's expired. Like a skin that no longer fits. A story that no longer inspires. That's where your leap begins. Not when everything is ready, but when you no longer have the energy to pretend. And yes, it will feel like death. Because in a way it is. The death of needing validation. The death of comfort. The death of who you were when you played small. But on the other side of that death is your truth. And your truth is unshakable. It doesn't beg to be believed. It simply walks, quietly, powerfully. Because once you align your energy with who you really are, the world can't ignore you anymore. Not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. So here's the final call. Let go of the timeline. Let go of the applause. Let go of the outcome. Hold only this. Your frequency. Be the person who no longer negotiates with fear. Who no longer delays intuition for logic. Who no longer waits for signs. Because they know. The sign was always them. Now look back at your journey. Not with regret, but with gratitude. Every fall. Every silence. Every betrayal. It wasn't the end. It was your becoming. So the question is no longer, are you ready? It's, will you allow who you truly are to finally emerge? Because when you do, the universe won't reward you. It will mirror you. And that's when miracles look like inevitabilities. If this resonated with you, don't just scroll. Comment below, I no longer wait. I walk as who I am. Not for the algorithm, but to anchor this truth in your soul. Subscribe if you're done surviving and ready to start becoming.